Have you got your time machine fixed yet? Because I'm getting really sick of the 12th century.
It smells bad, there's no hot water, and good luck finding something interesting to read. What do you mean it's not so bad? Hey, how'd this get here? Dear Tim and Moby, we're studying the feudal system in social studies class, and I don't think I get it. Can you explain it for me? From Sharita. I'd be happy to explain the feudal system to you, since we've sort of been stuck inside it for a few weeks now. Feudalism was the economic and political system that dominated Western Europe from about 900 to 1300 CE, during the height of the Middle Ages. Well, it began with the collapse of the Roman Empire. For hundreds of years, Europe was unified under Roman rule. But the empire fell apart in the 5th century CE, and Europe broke into dozens of small, independent kingdoms. The rulers of these new states had trouble repelling attacks from their neighbors and keeping their countries united. The feudal system helped solve these problems. Well, under the feudal system, the king gave big chunks of land, called fiefs, to the leading men in the country. Having a fief made you a nobleman, which gave you all kinds of power, plus certain responsibilities. Nobles became the king's vassals, promising to serve and protect him. If the land got invaded, the nobles had to provide the king with troops. They also had to let the king stay over if he visited, put up ransom money if he got captured by enemies, and pay taxes if he needed funds. Well, if a nobleman received a lot of land, he'd usually carve it up. Just like the king, he'd give away fiefs to his own vassals, as long as they pledged their loyalty and protection. These vassals were often friends or relatives, but some were specially trained soldiers called knights. Not all knights got land. In exchange for their services, they'd get a nice place to live and all the equipment and supplies they needed. Either way, by hiring lots of knights, a nobleman would always have soldiers ready to defend his land and the king's. You got it. This huge system of promises and personal relationships kept Europe stable for several centuries. Today, our economy is based on money, but back then, land was the most valuable thing in existence. So, if you owned land, you basically had it made. You were a lord, and your land was called your manor. You'd live in a big castle or a luxurious manor house and have total control over the land and the people who lived there. You could make your own laws, punish anyone caught breaking them, and tax the people as much as you liked. Best of all, once you got a fief, you could keep it in your family forever. You give it to your oldest son, who'd give it to his oldest son, and so on. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of social mobility in the Middle Ages. If you were born rich, you'd probably stay rich, and if you were born poor, you'd probably stay poor. The poorest people on the manor, and 90% of the population during the Middle Ages, were the serfs, or peasants. In exchange for the use of small plots of land, serfs had to work in the lord's fields, obey his orders, and pay him taxes and other fees. They didn't have a lot of rights. In fact, they weren't even allowed to leave the manor without the lord's permission. Since there was very little trade and travel was dangerous, manors had to produce enough food and supplies for everyone who lived there. Serfs were responsible for producing all this, since the nobility didn't work. Well, feudalism ended for a number of reasons. During the 14th century, famine and disease killed a huge chunk of the European population. These disasters created a labor shortage, so peasants were able to demand more rights and higher wages. If they didn't get their way, they had no problem staging bloody revolts. Towns and cities began growing, and a new middle class of merchants and craftsmen began forming. Kings started grabbing more and more government power, and money began to replace land as the main source of wealth. Soon, the Middle Ages were over, and a new era, the Renaissance, began. You fixed it? Really? Well then, let's get out of here. I was a medieval serf, and you were there, and I had to plow for 10 hours a day without getting paid. There weren't any bathrooms, and boy, I'm just glad it wasn't real.
Was it?